That's-
Check, check, quick sound check. Can everybody hear us loud and clear? What's going on, Coach Paul?
Hey, I can hear you loud and clear, Coach. And was that Andre? Is he going to come on the show today on this Valentine's Day?
We didn't announce a guest, but I think there he goes again. Yeah.
There he goes again. I never knew. He,
Welcome to
oh,
At the Buzzer,
that's
our
that's
market
beautiful.
recap. If this is your first time here, I'm Coach Jay. That is Coach Paul. The goal of this segment is to review what happened in the markets for the day. I'm happy that went over so well. Shout out to Gabe for sending me that asset really quick so we could get that in there. Today's about love, and I think we all love Andre.
So, we always figured he was a lover, not a fighter.
Right, right. Jay, I hope you're watching. Welcome to At the Buzzer, our market recap. If this is your first time here, I'm Coach Jay. That's Coach Paul. The segment is about reviewing what happened in the markets for the day. We may talk about some markets that you have not traded before, but we believe our goal as traders is to identify opportunity, see how we could have taken advantage of those opportunities while managing our risk. If this is our first time meeting, I'm Coach Jay. Been a Top Step performance coach since June of 2023. Been trading for the past 13 years and in the futures markets for the past 6, and that is Coach Paul. Coach Paul, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Coach Paul. I've been with Topstep since April of 2023. I've been involved in the futures industry for 4 decades. I'm here to share some of my experience, perhaps wisdom, to aid you in becoming a better trader.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And you are all our audience, the chat. Hopefully, everybody had a good day today. Let us know, were you up on the day, down on the day? Maybe you didn't trade at all today and stayed out of the markets because they were pretty choppy. Let us know how you ended your week, and we will go into the markets. As far as news goes, there was not much as far as planned news. We did have U.S. retail sales come in a little bit lower than, well, decently lower than expected at 0.9%. Forecast was 0.2%. Industrial production came in at, let me make sure I'm getting this number right, 0.5% when the expectations were 0.3%. Anything you saw on the news side, Coach, planned or unplanned?
Um, no, but we're going to go over a gold example a little later. Basic change in administration and views of the world. I think it's being reflected in gold, and we'll go over that example. But was a pretty well. The news didn't move the market, and I'm not surprised on a Friday after yesterday's big numbers were out. After yesterday's large range that we were basically violently unchanged. Maybe not even violently. So kind of a dead day, at least on the equity side. So nothing that really stands out for me.
Got you. Good stuff. Let's see what we got in the chat. See, YOLO Baggins took a week off to get calm from getting slaughtered by tweets all last week. Started today. Again, 2 new combines plus $1,000 in both. No tweets. I do fine. Yeah, unfortunately, we can't decide when those tweets are going to come out. So YOLO Baggins, nice restart today. But manage your risk, right? Manage your risk. Uncertainty, we welcome it when it's in our favor and not so much when it's not. But we can decide how much we lose somewhat. Slippage is real, but good job taking some time off, realizing you needed some time off. And then I got to give a shout out to one of our newest lunatics, Linus Rain, who's been joining us all the time at the buzzer. Green today requested her first payout and passed the VIP combine today. She's going to go buy a lottery ticket. If you hit on that lottery ticket, all I want is 2%. But great
Is
way
that all?
to end your week and go into the weekend. I mean, 2% of
Yeah,
Powerball is a decent amount.
yeah, you sound like a banker now.
2% could be a decent amount. D said copper and platinum had a day. The metals definitely had a day today, and we'll get into it for sure. Let's take a look here. Let's switch over to the quote boards. There's 35 different markets we can trade with Topstep, and not just the equities. And today, to the downside, we had gold down 1.71%, copper down 2.83%, and platinum down 3.05% for our biggest percentage move to the downside. To the upside, we had micro Ethereum futures up 2.31%, natural gas up 2.81%, and wheat futures up 4.11%. I know there was talks about, the and I don't want to misquote it. So, coach, if I'm wrong, just tell me I'm wrong. But you know, a ceasefire in the war between Russia and Ukraine. Is that correct? I read a headline
Hmm.
not that long ago that wheat prices were down so much because of that war. Uh, so I'm not surprised to see wheat up now 4%. Um, with that headline. So biggest percentage mover to the upside. And with our big four, we had crude oil down 0.88%. The S&P's down 0.05%, pretty much unchanged. I think the metals stole the show today. We already talked about gold uh, down 1.71%, and the NASDAQ up 0.43%. Biggest percentage mover to the upside in our big four. NDX, which is the underlying asset, we trade the futures. NDX did make a new all-time high today. The Nasdaq futures, this contract that we're trading, didn't, but NDX did. And since gold, I think again, Coach, was pretty much the talk of the day today. Let's start.
Well, let's use
Got
the half hour and start as we usually do from the opening last night.
Here is last night's open.
Um, made look at that. This is interesting, and this is where this reminded me of one of my partners was a very large trader, and he used to love to take an allocation of his capital.
You
And
said
he
love. It's in
that
the air.
love, there it is. Don't say it. Yeah, on this Valentine's Day. But anyway, he would have a theme. Um, and he would frame it out using options. Anyway, I'm going to go into a theme. Um, gold it made all-time highs this week, right?
Yes, it did.
All right. And it ended the week near the lows. And on a Friday, as the COMEX opened up, the selling came in. The U.S. is at the end of the rotational deck passing around the world. Friday, U.S. There's no one. It's Saturday in Australia and New Zealand as we speak.
No
It's
trading going
Saturday
on.
morning. No trading going on. So you could say, well, one of the themes is there was a big margin call, right? Well, if there was a margin call at all-time highs, it would be people who are stuck short
Right.
buying. So I think we can comfortably rule that out. The other side of a margin call is liquidation. And that seemed because look, last night, that looked like it was going to go to all time. We were talking yesterday. There's a possibility going to 3,000, maybe even a better than even probability.
Yep.
But since we don't know, and I don't pretend to know where it's going, I can just read the past, read and react. But I found it very interesting. What was the biggest news worldwide this week?
The delay in tariffs.
Delay in tariffs, in my opinion, the end of the Ukraine war.
That as well.
It's happening. I'm not getting into the politics of it. I'm just going being objective. It's ending. That's the talk. Now, let's go to a weekly chart.
Hmm. That
That's a doji on a weekly.
last time we
On
seen one of these. Go ahead, coach. Keep going.
on all-time highs, but this doji still ended up higher. Well, once again, I'm going to go back to it all happened on a Friday in the US. It didn't happen in Asia, it didn't happen in Europe. So this had to have been done on liquidation. But also, we just talked about the end of the war in Ukraine. When did it start? Oh, in February of 2022. Let's go back. Let's squeeze the chart to go back to February of 2022.
Okay, right here.
Okay, we get the initial reaction, and that was the start of the war, and we had the break. But at the start of the war, after in the next few weeks, there were sanctions announced, and it took some time to get Russia out of the international banking system. Right, I've got the name of the. They couldn't be on it anymore.
Okay.
So let's go forward a couple months. But what they could do
Buy gold.
is to trade the old relic, put their money instead of a bank, they could put it in gold. So this is a theme. Look at this rally. Since that, those sanctions got taken in. Now, come to present day, we have a new administration friendly, announcing that there's a very good chance it's the end of the war. What else would that be? That'd be the end of sanctions.
Hmm.
So to go back to the theme, is what can this end the gold rally? We talked about when we'll know when it's over, but if I want to be a seller, I set up a process to trade that side. One of them is Sunday night, Monday. I'm going to see, let's do an opening candle breakout with the weekly.
Oh yeah, with a weekly.
Yeah, with the weekly.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, if this is a top, so we go to the weekly and we can put on a VWAP on the weekly, and then let's frame that weekly out and anchor a VWAP.
Yep, it's right there. That red line.
Yeah, right there. Now, if this is a top and this is a doji, and it would probably start early, most likely. So we're gonna look at that if it breaks out with urgency and see if we can start a trend with the theme that this war changes the banking
The story
system,
for gold.
the story for gold. Now, if I'm wrong, then I have to allocate my position size accordingly.
Correct.
Allow myself. But if the theme is correct and it is a top, it could be a quick liquidation. So I found when I looked at that weekly and I took it back, I'm like, uh, this is off of all-time highs. Just like the last one, right? The last doji we had, what was it, that December? Or
This is
August?
October. This is October here.
Yeah. So look at what happened there. We broke the low early in the week.
I'm gonna go back to a daily chart and let's take a look at it and see how that. So we framed out the week. 28th started the week. And then the very next week, we're leaving on the second day, right? Second day of the week, we're
Yeah.
leaving that range.
So yeah, let's watch that next week. Um, of course, we're day traders, but what could we do to execute the short side in the day? Well, let's go back to the half an hour, keep those levels. Wow, boy, that brings that in perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah, it
Uh,
does.
but we settled we under the 200. Matter of fact, we bounced off it 1, 2, 3, and then collapsed. That's where look at that selling. That's the biggest volume of the day was that half hour, which was under the 200. Maybe they're listening to us. Uh, or
Or, or
maybe
we
it's so
or, or we found out what they were doing, and they're running the play right in front of our face.
yes. Um, that's I don't know. For the end of the week, that's a very, very weak close. Um, that's like I said, I would say that that's liquidation. And now it's up to the buyers to keep this market up. But if they feel pressure and you're a longer term owner, you might start feeling like, okay,
Yeah, I
the
don't want to
big,
be the last seller, right? At what point do I need to take profit here? Um, where we had this great rally, and yeah, I wanted to hit 3,000, but if it's not going to go there, I have to take profits eventually.
yeah, what was today's range? Because the average true range is like, what is it, 44 points. And today's total range might have been, oh my God. Now look at is that the daily?
Yeah, yep. This is the daily 72 points.
So twice the average true range. Now let's box that whole 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 week's worth once again. Then it didn't engulf, but look at the biggest volume on the end of the week, and it was selling. So, I find a gold market. Look at that. There's been nothing but buying for what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 weeks in a row.
3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 7 weeks. 7 weeks, and this rally has been going, like you said, Coach, for pretty much 2 years. Uh, all good things come to an end, maybe. We'll see,
Yeah.
right? We don't know. I think that the story that you kind of just laid out makes a ton of sense. Um, but I also know that, and you said it. Okay, great. We're day traders here. How do we trade it? If it presents an opportunity, you can almost lean into that one being a pretty good opportunity. If that is the um, exactly what we're seeing, right? Those are the circumstances that we're seeing.
Yep.
Could present a really nice day trade on that Sunday open.
So I wanted to go over that. And pretty, like I said, I found it very, it really started hitting me. I'm like, this is a Friday. Why did this happen now? Was there some big news that they found a cure for gold? Uh, I mean, it at the end of the week in New York market. So
Coach, good stuff. Possible 50% retracement. There's a possible 50%
yep.
retracement of that daily
Okay.
range, right? Anything can happen. I think, you know, understand what the circumstances are, what the environment is for the market, and then trade these setups, the technical setups that we see play out over and over again. Coach, I know you were talking about a potential, I think you were in the long. I was in the long as well. Um, I think it was this
Yeah.
trade right here. Yeah, this long
J
right back to
trade.
the right, where it's yes, this market is selling off, but leaning on a technical trade, a sell-off market is going to present an opportunity to 4 counter trend trades and then taking that one as well, right? I think was it this one? Yeah, for me it was this one. It was this right here, right? We had this high volume. This was actually the only trade I took in gold today to the long side, which sounds crazy, but
Oh, there was a quick $4 or $5 trade. This was it.
yep,
I hit it on the 5-minute bar.
5 minute. Uh,
Yeah. Either way, the volume didn't. It was the largest volume. We broke its high, and I believe I had a VWAP from the
I
eight
don't remember
o'clock.
where it was because yeah, it hit a VWAP somewhere, but I don't remember where it was either. Uh, I don't know. You trade, so you look at so many different markets. It's hard to remember. Got to start taking notes. Um, D said 50% pullback would hit the new supply it just formed. If it's going to continue down, it's a decent trade location to fish for intraday shorts at the new supply
Yeah.
edge. Yeah, right. 50% of this range. Let's look at what that price is. Uh, right through 50% of that candle. That is also lining up with the 200 moving average is probably going to be somewhere around there if we do pull up. Interesting. Very
Yeah.
interesting. Go ahead, coach.
And once again, it never recovered from that highest volume.
Yep.
Um, and this is being the half hour. We never got a J trade. So we had higher volume here. Um, we had a buying candle after the first highest volume, never broke the high. If you all right. Oh, that's right. Anyway, it didn't break the high. And this is a nice trade too. So we went literally to the tick to the 200. That was it. So can we get actually bought it the first time I touched. And um used a 5-minute. That was what I was like. Used a 5-minute bar from there. Um, had that rally. It went back to a VWAP. I got out looking, and then I said, "Well, I mean, because it was not a J trade yet on this." Um, but went back, touched it, and got through. Settled above, and that last one. That's where the biggest volume came on the half hour, and that was it. That um it never recovered and finished on the near the lows of the day. Wow. So that was to me was a lot going on in gold today. It was a major movement.
Closing under 2,900. We will see what Sunday brings. We know Monday is going to be a half day. Just a reminder for everyone who's trading with us, Monday is going to be a half day. So just keep that in mind. If you are trading, you should get an email from Topstep that tells you exactly what times you should be looking to close out your positions. But it doesn't mean that the markets aren't going to move. I think one of the biggest moves or one of the best one directional moves that we saw last year was the holiday right before, like the half day right before Christmas. Where the if you look at the equities, they just went straight up. Not saying that that's going to happen, but I don't want to say, hey, it's a half day, don't trade, because there's still opportunity. Markets might be a little thin, but if you manage risk, you can still trade them. Let's go over to the equities. Looking at a 30-minute chart on NQ. Here is last night's open. And this one was an interesting one. This doesn't feel like a market that the underlying asset just made an all-time high. Uh, But we've talked on the daily, the December 18th candle, which we're still inside of that range, but we closed above 50% of it yesterday. We look like we want to continue upwards for now. Uh, but today didn't feel like it. It didn't feel like these markets really moved up at all. If we look at the overnight session, was not really much to see here. And even during fast markets this morning, the team was having a tough time trying to trade this, right? Looking for a breakout. And again, a market where the underlying asset is making all time highs. You don't expect it to look like this, but this is just kind of slow grind up. These wicks on the bottom of these 30-minute candles are just insane. Uh, just insane, right? Here's a nice opportunity if we actually we're just going to ignore that, right? Let's just look at the equity open. Um, Here is the equity open right here on
Jeez,
a
you had to find it. The only way to find it, you know, what I do is look down at the volume,
Oh yeah, yep,
right?
yep,
It's where the cards are dealt.
correct. Here's the equity open right here. The first 3 minutes, we see that VWAP didn't leave for three. Actually, it never. It took 6 hours for that VWAP to leave that range. It took 5 hours for VWAP to leave that range. Very range bound market. You guys have heard me say that anytime I'm looking for this trade to be urgent, right? So it's either going to leave the range or it's not. And if it doesn't, if I want to be a breakout trader, I have to wait until the market says, yeah, it's time to go. The likelihood that we stay in a 40-point range in the Nasdaq for the entire day is pretty low, right? And it was a little bit more than that, right? If you want to consider that entire range, but the likelihood that we stay in a 70-point range in the Nasdaq is pretty low. But the market is going to tell us when it's ready to break out of that range, and trying to preempt it, especially when it shows you that volume isn't going with it, is just a tough thing to do, right? There's range traders, right? We did the 1, 2, 3, 4, which chart resonates with you the best. Uh, this is exactly where you want to be, right? Where it's not a extremely tight range. There's 70 points high to low, and you could take advantage of that. But depending on your trade style, this was just not for me, right? Until later in the day. By the time I locked out this Topstep account, I did take a long uh, in a personal account, just off the lows of this range, saying, yeah, it's probably going to hold. Um, not even looking for 22,000s, right? I know Dakota was in this trade as well, but just looking for the market to get back to the other side of the range, right? It showed that it's going to hold a couple of times. This gives me an area to limit risk. Uh, but very range bound day. But hopefully this means that we're breaking out, right? We've seen some of these levels. We broke over some of these higher time frame resistance levels. The market closed above 22,000 for the first time in a very long time. And now the next target would be the high of this December 18th candle, and then all time highs up at 22,450, which at this point is
A day's
just over
range away.
1% away. Right, days range away. So we could be there on a quiet, nobody's trading Monday.
Boy, Coach, we're still in that candle, aren't we? The December
We
18th
are.
candle.
We are.
Now, uh, I found it interesting looking at this. I wanted to ask you, and then I see it right here. This rally yesterday and today is done on below average volume. Um, well, today was well below average volume. So, literally not out of the woods yet. But good chance of touching those all-time highs.
For sure. Uh, yeah, this looks pretty good. And a lot of times, right, we'll say below average volume. It's funny, coach, because would I be surprised if, for whatever reason, the market comes in and just wants to sell it again?
Well,
Nope.
Sunday night gap.
We'll see what happens, right? Do we get four in a row? Um, you know, on the daily, when we look at it, most of the extreme above average volume is going to usually be to the downside. Not all the time, but for the most part. But when we get these quiet, and to me, these are the dangerous markets to short, right? When it's just a quiet, low volume rally where you just like you said yesterday, right? When the hell does this stop going up? And it just doesn't, and it's just the Nasdaq is just slowly, 20 points up, 6 points back, another 20 points up, 6 points back, and you think that you're going to get this big short move, and it never happens, right? It doesn't happen for months. So if all of the scariness is out of the market at this point, where we delayed tariffs, we're hearing the end of wars and things like that. Uh, Take a look at 2023 markets that just went up, right? We had a lot of below average volume days, and if you all remember, these were and you started hearing Dakota talk about it a little more. He's just like, oh, all the bad news is out. Buy the dip. If anyone wants to remember or wants a quick recap on all of the money Dakota made last year, it was buying the dip in 2023, um, when markets just went up. So not saying that that's the case here. We still got a lot of work to do to get outside of this candle. But if we're going to go into that mode where we're just making all time highs, these are not markets I want to short for a long time.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? We've had a breakout in bonds.
Interesting.
Um, so I mean it's not unfriendly um to the equity market. So
Interesting times. Interesting times. All right, let's get to some of the questions we have in the chat. Rufus King, Coach Paul, if you have time, could you look at the yen on last night's open? Curious to
oh
get your thoughts on how you would have entered that trade.
yeah, we
Well,
talked about that. Well, go
Rufus,
on, coach.
I'm throwing it to you.
Uh, um, yeah, we traded it early last night. So we look at the half hour. And we can start with the 5 o'clock. Um, Now let's just move it all the way to the right, and we can go pretend like we don't. All right. So, um, we saw that yet last night. That was on to me. Was on the scouting report. So looked early. So we start with a 3 minute from last night. And I shorted early breakout.
Yeah.
Okay, now that looked great. It was a great trade. Now, what is my risk? So I take the breakout trade right the next candle. So selling it halfway into that candle, I think it was. Now at 2 ATRs.
Much make a new high.
Let it make a new high with give it so how many points? 20 points?
20 points. Yep.
20 points is $250. That, and remember, this is the worst case scenario. Actually sold a couple.
Right.
Now, what was my reward on the 3 minute?
You got a 2 to 1. You almost got a
Yeah,
3 to 1 to the lows.
I got 2 to 1. I took one off.
Nice.
And I kept one with the original stop. Um, and I think I lost. Oh no, I can tell you where's my. I lost $92.
Good loss. Good measurable loss, especially because the market went much higher than where that initial stop was, uh, for the rest of the day. Um, I really love that, taking multiple contracts, being able to get out of one, secure some profits, pay for the trade, and then leave your stop where it is originally, and then you can manage that one. But yeah, you definitely did get a 2-to-1 trade if you're looking at a 3-minute. Paul H says jumped in a little bit too quick and you used a 30-minute. So here's the thing,
Well,
right? We just go
yeah.
ahead, coach. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Let's put the 30-minute up, and I'm going to pass it right back to you, coach. What happened in the 30-minute?
Right. So we have to trade the time frame that is that we're looking at, right? So if I'm on a 3-minute, I'm going to trade the 3-minute and I trade the full setup on the 3-minute. If I'm on the 30, I trade the 30. In this case, on a 3-minute,
30-minute.
oh sorry, on a 30-minute, we had one thing off that 4-point checklist. The range was established. We never got a close outside. We never got VWAP outside, right? So this is range bound. So Paul, what you did there, which is fine, we've talked about it before, right? Preempting a trade, especially preempting this one because we were under that 200 moving average. It's just if we preempt a trade, we have to accept the fact that it might be lower probability. If we go with that 4-point checklist, we only checked one, right? So it's fine. It's going to happen. You're not. I think it's going to be very hard for you to prevent yourself from doing that. I'll say it that way. Go ahead, coach.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I thought I was so. Now, when we just went through the process in a 3-minute, the 30-minute is 10 times as much time. And I'm preempting it because I would have, man. But here's another thing is when you're preempting it, and I want to do this from experience, you can see at the end of that second candle, it didn't get through. And what do we have? A wick. And what is that? A hammer?
Hammer candle. Yep.
And as the smart rat said to the other, I don't care about the cheese. I don't want to get caught in a trap. And, we're talking reading more information. One of the things that I know this one, I preempt it, and then VWAP doesn't follow through. Can I exit?
If you don't have to take that stop, yeah.
So at that point, and this is where the trick goes, it might be $50 and you were up temporarily 100. And now your mind is, well, I need to be right, or I'll wait until get delay. But there's the quick and the dead, right? It didn't preempt. The volume sellers didn't follow through. It got real quiet, right? And I talk about the example in the trading pit. A roar comes in the selling. So you have 500, it's just, and then and it was eerie as hell. All of a sudden it went, hmm. I think that was a classic example. Because I was like, okay, this is gonna follow through, and it didn't. But I'll tell you what's happened now. We're above the 200, and we held it once, broke through the second time with bigger volume. Look at this. Look what happened.
Volume got above. Volume crossed that 200 moving average. The 20 and the 50 crossed as well. Looking at it daily.
And the 20 and 50 crossed first time since, what is that, way back, where it crossed to the downside. And by the way, this cross is
Downside. This
close.
cross is October 10th.
Okay. You know what's interesting? Let's look at today's cross. And it, all right. Now let's go back to the half. We see it crossed. Let's look at the half hour in today's biggest volume. It was buying.
Right.
That looks like some fund or a bank. That's a technical trade. Look at that. And that was by far the biggest volume, the biggest candle. It held exactly 50%. It's actually kind of friendly. So looking into next week, right now, I'd say Japanese yen will have a propensity to rally.
Percent. Paul H had a question. Did
Hmm.
you use the 3 minute because this is an Asian market and it's an Asian asset? I thought we always look at a 30 minute on Globex. I'm gonna answer
Uh,
part of that. Hold on. I want to answer
yeah.
that second half of that, and I'm just gonna say experiment.
Well, you took it out. I wanted to see if there was selling early, and there was. And I was pretty bearish on that. So I started out with a 3. I wanted to take because it was a little less risk. And believe me, if that would have, so I want to be in position to do more than I wanted to put a package on. Um,
If you're
if,
waiting 30 minutes, you might have to wait.
yep. Here was the other one. If it goes out of the 30 minutes, I would have doubled my position.
There you go.
All right.
There you go.
I want to add to a winner aggressively. And it's a very good question. You can wait for the 30-minute, and usually it's better at night. I was looking at urgency early because I wanted to sell it. And it was leaning against the 200 moving average. It didn't just go through it. So, and it was looking great. And I lost well. Now, reckless would have been, I would have been stuck in my theme and waiting for the selling to get me out that never came. But sometimes you can, if you have an opinion, start a 5 minute, start with a smaller time frame, but small. Maybe now it breaks through the half hour. I started with the 5 minute. I know you don't have to do a 3 minute or just don't. You could do a shorter time frame within it and see if it breaks out in a longer candle and add. What happens if it breaks out? That means the volume is continuing to go in that direction, and by default, you're swimming behind the shark. So with the shark.
Yeah, I'm just gonna suggest to experiment. Also, um, Linus Rain said, you took off one of your positions at 2 to 1, and then you have a process of closing your trade if it gets back above VWAP. But you said you ended red on this trade. Uh, I just want Paul and I are both humans, and in the positions that we sit, we are going to try to give information. eh, We're going to try to give the ideal version of how we trade. But sometimes with execution, it happens a little different, right? Where coach, if we basketball example, right? If you go with the greatest shooter in the world, Steph Curry, right? There's a very specific by the book way that they tell you to shoot a jump shot. But then if you look at the way he shoots, sometimes his feet are facing towards the sideline and he's turning around before the ball goes in the basket. He's just trying things because you're in flow. But sometimes you develop a feel, right? And Coach Paul, for whatever reason, I mean, I don't want to talk for you why you didn't take the trade off when it got back above VWAP, but sometimes you develop a feel, but the feel has to be established in a process, right? So anything we teach here is going to be process first, and then there might have been a feel in that trade where, hey, you know what, this is one that I'm comfortable holding on to. Um, so
Hey,
go ahead, Coach.
I'll add to that right now. We started, by the way, that was in the 3 minute.
Correct.
We were getting in early to a sell, but on the half hour. So what happened at the end of the half hour? That was my was starting with the 3 minute, and I wanted to double it up. I felt really good. That was the best loss I've taken in a long time.
I know you wanted, yeah.
I got a little carried away. Well, no, I can't say carried away. I
You didn't
was,
get carried away. You lost $92.
yeah.
The market just didn't agree with that trade idea. Because, like you said, if it did what I was looking for, and this is where we really have to measure risk and what we do. Coach Paul could have got in this trade and sold with every dollar that he had because it looked like a pretty good setup and it looked like it started early. But taking that small loss where you were wrong about the direction of the market for the day, I think you know um, you said it before, Coach. We can have rules, but rules get broken all the time. Principles don't. You
Yeah,
didn't lose your whole
principles.
account on this trade, right? And I think that's really it. We're gonna break rules all the time. You're gonna see me break rules that I have almost every single day. I try not to, because when I follow my rules, they work out pretty well. But if in the event that I do, the principles have to be what we lean on. Um, and
And
I'm not
like,
trying to defend you, Coach. You should have
oh, I
took the
don't.
profits. You should have bought it.
Well, that wasn't my intention going in.
Right,
My intention was to go early with the 3 minute and add on the 30.
right.
I was wrong. And it cost me 92.5 dollars. Okay, I want to use a poker example. The first hand was dull. That's, you see your cards and you see the what's on the table. And say you're dealt pocket jacks. That's a pretty damn good hand. I've got information. But you still have to bet. So with that, you just go all in. I mean, that's reckless. But yeah, I'm in, and I'll raise you. So it came to the raise part. Was the second the card is flipped, and it's someone else goes, I'm all in. Okay, I'm out. Done. I've got two. There's some new information, and I think that the next card didn't give me three of a kind. I have to make a decision there. And the decision is whether I want to win the pot. Of course, I want to win the pot. But is it worth the risk? So, yeah. I could have just waited, been patient, but I thought, and it looked like it. And the trade was I was going to sell this. If I would have waited for the half hour breakout, I might have even preempted it. I mean, that's happened, right? We just
Well, yeah,
talked about it.
it happens all the time. Happens all the
So,
time.
um, if I was trading a 3 minute, yeah, I should have taken a 2-to-1. But I took a one. I took one. I had
Took a
two
one to
on.
one. Yeah, right.
So anyway, I don't. I consider. I don't. It was a good trade. The result was not a profit, but I took good risk, and I'd do that again.
So we want to talk about. We got 10 minutes left. Actually, we got some questions in the chat. Let's get to the questions in the chat.
Liquidity
How do
sweep.
you? What is a liquidity sweep?
I can take the beginning of that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because we used to have it. I just described it. A big order comes in, and I was an executing broker for years. And a big order comes in. I'm not going to get it done by playing games. I'll sell you two. What I mean, a big order is they're not coming in to day trade. So let's say the bid and offer is 50 up, right? I can't. I have 1,000 to sell. That's 20 50 lots. I'm not going to be waiting for, I'm not going to go 7 bid for 1,000, right? And then go 7 bid for 1,000, because what's going to happen? We used to call it's a thing called getting, they'll race me. Oh, I'm 8 bid for 1,000, and they buy in front of me, waiting for me to either cancel it or go. So instead of doing that, a large entity, just say with an algorithm, so what I say would say it's 7 bid, pay
7
up
bid, yep.
to pay up to 13 for 1,000. And that's going to happen. It's going to sweep. Here's what it's going to sweep the DOM and take out any resting offers. And when you see negative delta, that's usually that's a sign of a sweep. Because what did they do? They just took out the
Everything that was
sitting
there.
offers, right? And then they
Right.
stopped, and you see this sudden jolt. That is, in my definition, a liquidity sweep. It's a bigger entity. They're not playing 50 lots,
Taking what's on
and
the books.
they're taking liquidity that's sitting in the book, literally. Okay, and this happens. You can say, well, that's not fair. Life's not fair. I'm not asking for. It's the reality of the market. They're not there playing 50 lot game. You might not see them again for 3 months. They're looking for liquidity, whether it's a hedge or it's a position. So that's what liquidity, and you'll see it with a big candle. And usually a J trade is a liquidity sweep.
I
It's
agree with everything you just said there, Coach. I think in order for something to be a liquidity sweep, there has to be liquidity there, right? There has to be volume that's traded there. Um, and I want to. There is a liquidity sweep can be defined, and I've worked with some traders who trade, certain concepts, some ICT concepts and things like that, smart money concepts, and a liquidity sweep might be considered something like this, right? Where we have these highs, right? Where we say, okay, this is a high here. And again, I am not an ICT trader, so just bear with me. I'm just giving an example here, but a trade above this could be considered a sweep of liquidity for then the trade would be to the short side, which in this case would have worked. The one thing I'm looking at in this case is if there was no volume here, this move is insignificant, right? Because there was actually no volume traded here. Price was kind of just floating around, right? And I'm saying insignificant. Is this still a good short trade? Yes. But if there was volume up here, I think this is a completely different move, and we actually probably sell off, right? We actually saw it in the Nasdaq yesterday. Remember, we talked about some 500 lots in the Nasdaq yesterday. Those get taken out. That's a liquidity sweep based in volume. And then if you saw what happened in the move, we got almost 100-point drop after the market uh, stopped going up from there, right? About 100-point pullback. So uh, it depends for me. Any kind of liquidity sweep is going to be volume based. But I know that there are other strategies that teach it a different way. Right. Other questions we got here. How do you know whether the market is dipping or reversing? It's a good question. That's almost a $1 million question. It's at least $1 million question. Go ahead, Coach.
put up a line chart. It's easier to see in a line chart. What I like to do is go from the opening, so I can see the opening from the volume.
Here's the. You looking for last night's open?
No, this morning's open.
Right here. This is the yen.
Let's go to
Okay.
the S&P or Nasdaq or an equity.
See this. Here's the open here.
All right. Now, such a flat day. There's really not a good example we could go to. Is that let's go to yesterday.
Yesterday.
All right. Let's go from the number, PPI number.
Okay.
Bring up the trend tool.
Trend line.
A trend line, yeah.
Okay.
All right, start with that low right there. Okay, now hit okay, that's buy the dip, but extend it. Okay, let it go. Now let's see, buy the dip. So we got, there's the dip. Now let's do it, put a daily on. That low, next low, next low, and then it stops. That's a buy the dip on a daily time frame. What is it's trending? Buying the dip, you have to have a trend. We can use it in other ways, but I find the best way to get a trend is use a line chart. Why? It uses the settlement. At the end, literally at the end of the day is the settlement. It's where it's settled, right? That's where the price is gone to the clearinghouse. But there is a buy the dip mentality in a longer one. You could use an hourly. But buy the dip is a trend that's either that's moving up.
For me, the way I tell if I go just with volume is if the market starts to trend, and again, you need to know if it's a reversal, like Coach just said. If you have a trend, uh, we saw it. I can't remember what day it was, but recently we saw the market close under a VWAP on a shorter time frame. That was the confirmation that the trend was over in that direction. I think it was yesterday, one of these days recently, where once we get below VWAP and close below it, right? If we're trending and the market trades back to VWAP and holds as a support, that's a dip, a buyable dip. If we are trending and the market closes below that VWAP and it no longer acts as a support, that is a change in direction from a volume perspective.
There you go.
All right.
We see that. How many times do we see that?
A lot. A lot.
Because think about it, the ATR is a buy the dip because the average true range isn't a tool, a technical tool. It's an algorithm used by large entities to allocate throughout the day on an average price. They're never going to, you're not going to fill a big order like that at one price. That actually, they'll go to the citadels of this world, or hey, we want to buy $1 billion and we're going to hold you to the settlement. Now they can say, well, we want points to do that. And then but the bottom line is, if you can do that consistently, you get the difference. And without going deeper into it. But what you'll see is a trend, a buy the dip. Who's buying the dip? Well, the strong hands. Weak hands don't control anything. It's an entity in the market that buys in the beginning. Okay, it comes down, buy some more, or vice versa. Sell the rally, the opposite of buy the dip. Okay, one last question.
Realize we're at time. Just the hour goes by really quick. But yeah, I see that question from Nelson, Coach.
We had that example in the end. When do I know to fold it? Well, first of all, before I enter the trade. That hit my stop. I was up money, and then when I hit the stop, I was down a little bit. That's it. So that's a really good question, Nelson. When do I know when to fold? Before I get in. And if I'm having a really bad day, it's 12% of my equity. Doesn't happen that often.
This is a really good question, because I think what Nelson is asking is maybe not just on that one trade, right? The like, hey, if I try to get back into this again, right? But like you said, coach, if once you get out of that stop, once you take that stop, it's a reassessment, right? It's not a emotional, hey, I just got stopped out, I want to jump back in because I'm right about the short. If you were to take that short again, the trade had to reconfirm, and it never did, right? So anytime you get stopped out of a trade, I think that's a good place to go as far as assessment goes, right? A lot of times what happens, especially with, either newer traders or traders that are trading with emotions, it's I get stopped out and I immediately want to get back in to get my money back. And sometimes you could do that, but you have to realize that your assessment is completely trash and you should be buying it instead of selling it, which is okay, right? Sometimes we're going to get it wrong. But if we're wrong and not willing to accept that we're wrong, then that's when we stay in and say, "Oh, you know what? Nope. I took it with a one lot, now I'm going to take it with a six lot and I'm going to get my money back plus some." Right? So I think after you get stopped out of a trade is a really good time to assess what happened, right? We talk all the time about knowing what it looks like when your trades don't work. If I take a trade, it gets stopped out, I'm gonna assess, hey, is my idea, does the market agree with my trade idea, right? Or am I trying to impose my own will on the market? And if it agrees with my trade idea, was my timing wrong? And if it is there another opportunity for me to get into the trade? Right. So, and if there's not, right, if you do that assessment and the market says, hey, you're looking for a short, but I'm about to run 200 points, you could either get in if you want to, or you could keep trying to fight me, and you don't pay attention to that, when you fold when the market folds you, uh, right? It folds your account. Um,
Mama said knock you out.
right. Uh,
It's like,
I got nothing else. So go ahead, coach. Go ahead.
I'll go
Yeah, go
one
ahead.
last thing to reiterate, and that's for
Yeah, yeah.
this is a principle that we talk about. When do you know before you get in? That's one of the rules or principles of a consistent winner. It's predefine the risk. So you don't, and you accept it or you don't put it on, right? Then when you do that, you're not susceptible to going, when am I wrong? That's what predefining the risk means. So I know exactly what, until I followed these principles, I got caught in just trying to be right or chasing losses or all the above. Uh, uh, think of the poker player. Read Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke.
Yeah.
Very good book.
Speaking of which, Kevin S just mentioned, he said the martingale strategy involves doubling up on losing bets and reducing winning bets by half. So that might not be such a bad strategy, but what we get to do in trading and with poker, you get to decide whether or not you play that hand, right? Could you get short in the market, get stopped out, and say, okay, I'm completely wrong about the direction the market's actually going up. I'm going to get long and take twice the position size. Could you do that? Because then you're placing a bet on the correct flow of the market. You could, but what happens in reality most of the time is, hey, I got stopped out going short with one lot. Maybe that just wasn't enough. I need five lots on the same position. I'm just going to bet more on a wrong idea, um, which it's like knowing you have a losing hand in poker and just saying, "Hey, run that one back, and I'll just put more money on it and see if it works this time." It's not going to work.
Give me a peek.
Yeah, right.
Is that
Not
right?
going to work.
If I get a little peek?
Not going to work. But I got nothing else, coach. You have
All
anything
right.
else?
It's Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Perhaps spend an hour Sunday night reviewing your trades, or when you have time. Don't make it a full time. Just review your trades. See if you're following the principles of consistent winners. If not, get on that path And most of all, enjoy the weekend.
Enjoy
And
your.
get
I didn't
rest.
mean to cut you off. There you go, Coach.
No.
Enjoy your weekend, everyone. Do something fun. We work very hard at what we do here. We say it all the time. So if you have to review the charts, do it, but make sure you do something that you enjoy. Maybe even something that you love. We'll talk to you all next week.